we have 4 big differences to talk about that fans should expect for Street Fighter 6, including potential new game engine, which could solve a bunch of problems of the past. I know this has been a big issue for people. Also, changes to how these games are balanced, how much the community will react when we learn more about Street Fighter 6, and so much more in this episode of EventHubs Talk and Block. I want to talk about four big Street Fighter 6 differences we're anticipating. And boom, let's get right into it. At number 1, a new game engine, potentially. The Unreal Engine 4, which Street Fighter 5 used, and a bunch of other games did as well, had a number of problems with it. Most notoriously, the input delay issues, which were somewhat resolved a few years in by both Epic Games, Unreal, the engine creators, and Capcom as well, right? But also, there were things like clipping, which is still a problem to date. Models may be looking a little bit more funky. Shouts to Kin, who we're going to put up there. Kin face will probably go on for forever. And some of the stuff ended up a little bit more funky than it should have because of how the shaders are applied in Unreal Engine and other things that could potentially actually be resolved with a brand new game engine. Capcom actually has a very solid history of creating their own game engines, like the MT framework, which was used in Ultimate Marvel 3, Ultra Street Fighter 2, The Final Challengers on Nintendo Switch, and Mega Man 11, and Monster Hunter World. Like they and quite a bit more. Like they have experience creating really good engines and making them work super well for themselves. So
and this is the RE engine. For everyone that will want to know this, it's in the Resident Evil games. It does not stand for Resident Evil Engine. Just little PSA for everybody. It's a Reach for the Moon engine. So there you go.
Wow. So the latest creation in this regard, of course, the RE engine, which you just talked about, already has some stellar titles released on it. Not just Resident Evil games, as you mentioned, like all the latest RE games are on there, but also Ghosts and Goblins Resurrections and Devil May Cry 5. This engine is clearly ready for prime time. And
Monster Hunter Rise, also that little game
Nintendo Switch
is also on there.
Yeah. So it could even lead to the advent of a better netcode. And, just reduced input delay and other stuff like that, just on virtue of it being an in-house engine. Because the big thing is you can, go back to Epic and say, hey, you're having trouble with input delay. Our models are clipping through and all this other kind of stuff. Can you guys fix this for Capcom, the one of a million people using this, engine and stuff like that? And Epic was probably going to go like, wait for Unreal Engine 5 and you can have it then. But Capcom, since it's an internal engine, they can go to their programmers and say, hey, we're having trouble with input delay, we're having trouble with netcode, we want all this stuff fixed, can you guys fix it for us? And they're like, yeah, we'll make that better. And that is the big difference here. And Capcom has a really good history of doing this. So their own internal engines have actually been very good for Capcom to work with, and they like to make their games in a certain way. So to me, I'm very hyped up about this potential change, even though it's very technical. Sorry everyone for that explanation. But John, I know your background isn't on the technical side of things, but do you see this being a win for Capcom if they control more technical aspects of this stuff, like with the outline I just gave here?
Well, yeah, especially with how you just laid it out. The first place that my mind goes is, why did they ever move away from this? If they want so much control, if they have so much of their own style, why would they? And perhaps the answer is, well, we just don't have the time to develop something like this for where we are right now.
Yeah, actually, it's their company was in extremely bad straits when they started sign up for Street Fighter 5 and they had to get Sony's money and stuff like that. So making the Unreal Engine using that was a cost savings thing for them, I believe.
Sure, and that makes sense. But if they don't have that now, and you can, because at the foundations of it, Capcom makes gold a lot of times, and not just in fighting games. They're really good at what they do most of the time. But maybe if they're kind of hobbled by having to dance with somebody else's tune, so to speak, you get something more like Street Fighter 5. So I think this is great. It's at the very least, it's a whack at doing it in Capcom's full style, and that can't be worse.
Ain't no possible way this can go wrong.
I really think that what has popped up so far with the tanky Ryu and young scarred Luke, that looks really good. I'm excited for this design. Yeah. I am in no way worried that the departure from the old sort of cartoony style will be an issue. Yeah. So bring it on.
All right. At number 2, we have less insane offense. Hey John, have you ever heard of this term called esports? Neither have I. But I hear Capcom is all in on this, and basically that means really bombastic and over the top things happening on the screen at all points in time, because that's what esports is apparently. And this often means a heavy bias towards offensive play in fighting games. And the problem with Street Fighter V is Capcom swung the pendulum way too damn far over to the offensive side of things. But the thing about it is they kind of fixed it, and we saw Street Fighter V eventually tone down from their crazy offense from the beginning of the game to where it is now. I think Street Fighter 6 is going to come out of the gate with a better offense to defense ratio than its predecessor had. At least I hope, because again, that's where they've moved the game.
Well, we've talked about it, and by we, I mean, I mean EventHubs, and I also mean the FGC in general, or the Street Fighter scene in general. We've highlighted the fact that offense has been too much, and they've already heard it, right? They implemented a whole new mechanic to try to fix that. But this sort of mirrors the ending of Street Fighter 4, right? Because what was the big issue that we were talking about with Street Fighter 4? Vortex. What did they do in their final update? They added a few things, namely the delayed wake up, and then they did the red focus and a few other things that affected the game. But that delayed wake up was to help deal with Vortex and the unblockable setups and things along those lines. And so that was a very much, and of course part of that was the option selects, right? So that was very much on Capcom's mind at the time. And when they developed Street Fighter V, probably simultaneously, and then thereafter, a little baton toss, they carried that with them very much, and you could see clear intent to get rid of that, to get rid of option selects, to make it so it wasn't just a one knockdown kind of game. Now it turned into like a one get in kind of game in certain respects, but it wasn't because of the same reasons it was in Street Fighter 4. So I fully expect them to be aware of the issue, and the issue is overwhelming offense. They clearly already are, and I fully expect them to move the needle towards defense. How far will they go? I have no idea, and it scares me. But
yeah. It's that esports, man. Now keep in mind, I want to be very clear that I do think offense is going to be favored over defense, just because the history of defensive Street Fighter games and kind of fighting games in general, when defense is more dominant than offense, is not good. Those games do not tend to get picked up and have good sales. So, I mean, but we're kind of hoping instead of a 50-50 or anything like that, like a 60-40, offense is 60, defense is 40 kind of thing. But when Street Fighter 5 first came out, it felt like 80-20 or some crap like that. It was like, why would you even attempt? Can you even play defense? Is defense even possible to play?
The best defense is a good offense.
Pretty much. That's all it was. So it's going to be...
The best defense is V-trigger.
Oh, man. So yeah. So hopefully, again, it's just not crazy. We expect more offense and defense, but just please don't make it crazy. But moving on here to number 3, tweaks to the core gameplay that piss off hardcore fans. That is something we are totally expecting here, because throughout the history of releases of Street Fighter, there have been fans pissed off about fundamental changes Capcom made. First off, it was supers in Street Fighter 2. The last edition, they added in supers. People were like, what is this crap? Then in Alpha, it was air blocking and chain combos. And then in parries in Street Fighter 3. And then in Street Fighter 4, you had input leniency and the removal of parries. And fans are like, we're never going to play this game. This game is bull crap. It's too easy to play because of input leniency, all this other kind of stuff. And then, of course, with Street Fighter 5, the last game that we have here, it was the input buffer to make link combos easier to do. They're like, you're crapping on the game, all this other kind of stuff. The community, John, is gonna be pissed when whatever the Street Fighter 6 thing is. We have no idea what it is, but I can just assure you the community is gonna be livid when they find out what it is.
It'd be funny if they started talking about it now, not knowing what it is, but just starting to share the sentiments, because they might as well, right? We might as well. I put myself in there. I don't know. I don't go on Facebook as almost ever anymore, except for to post our stories and whatnot. But I remember back when I was in college, a million years ago, Facebook would update every few weeks, and we were all very heavily on it. Every time anything changed, it was just the worst thing that could have happened. Like, Facebook, it was so perfect, and now you ruined it, and I can't tell everybody how I'm feeling with a song lyric. Well, you hated the last time we changed it, and then we changed it again, and you hate it again, as if that last one was the perfect. So I think that also kind of highlights that process of, I just like what it was, and you changed it.
Yeah, Capcom has something up their sleeves to ease the pain of new players joining their franchise, and when the hardcore community finds out about it, again, rage and complain, that's just what it is, then they'll adapt and abuse whatever that new said tactic is, and then we'll start this process all over again for Street Fighter 7.
And your list, though, of things there, some of those things are awesome, like supers. They never went away, and now they're in
Yep.
every game, every fighting game pretty much ever. And other things like air blocking is like, yeah, that's not for all fighting games. It might be for some, but it's not, and it's probably not for Street Fighter. But so there's apples, oranges, strawberries in your list of things there, and some of them should be rightfully complained about, and some of them shouldn't be. So that just further tells me that people are just going to complain.
Yes. We love the complaints. So take them here at EventHubs. You can leave your complaints in the comments below of what
Hey,
what mechanic
have
is
a
gonna
complaint? Hit us up in the comments. Let us know about anything. You don't like what we're doing. You don't like what Capcom's doing. Mustard is too brown. Whatever it is, let us know.
be. Number 4, final one here. Better single player content. Capcom said right at the start of Street Fighter V that they would not match NRS's efforts this time out. But they would try to rival them the next time around. So they have set that expectation up there. Plus, that is a general expectation of AAA fighting games in the community now, that the single-player campaign, shout outs to King of Fighters, not a AAA fighting game, but King of Fighters 15.
But you could have been a AAA fighting game if you had a better story. King of Fighters 15. Learn your lesson.
Maybe. So, but the Capcom has also told their investors that landing strong scores when the game initially hits, they want to see very strong stuff up on Metacritic collectively. And Street Fighter V was like in the 70s.
We're gonna have so many C pluses up there, baby. It's going on the fridge. Thanks, IGN. 6.8 out of 10.
Boom.
I don't know that that's not what IGN gave Street Fighter 5.
Close enough, man. Close enough. So, but Street Fighter 5, as you said, was panned heavily for that lack of single player content. One of the worst single player content launches we've ever seen from a AAA fighting game. John, I actually have to ask you, I want to turn this back over to you. What do you think would happen if Street Fighter 6 launched with a similar state of affairs as Street Fighter 5 did? What do you think the community of gamers would do?
I just need to think about what I would do, and I'm not sure because there's a lot of scenarios playing out in my head right now that are versions of me I never wanted to have realized.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess it's interesting because Capcom has a way of repeating mistakes or not making progress, but at the same time, like we were saying in our previous segment, doing just enough to check the box to not go away, right? Because Street Fighter V's launch happened and it didn't kill the game. Now, Marvel Infinite's launch happened and it killed the game. It might have killed the franchise. We'll see. So no, they do. I mean, and Street Fighter 3 happened and it kind of killed the franchise for like 10 years or so. So I think people would still probably forgive, but I want to say of my own morals, it's like fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice, and I would probably go start playing more Mortal Kombat or something like that. Yep. Something needs to be said. Something would need to be communicated to say, look, Capcom, I know you're Capcom, but you can't do this. Like, you can't conduct yourself like this. I know you have money to do more than what you're doing now. So I would think that a lot of people, it might cause another dark age. That's what I would say. It would cause like a 10-year dark age for Capcom fighting games. And that would be an absolute tragedy because, man, we have so much potential right now, so much in the way of esports and where we could go. And for them to they've shot themselves in both feet, but I don't know, that would be like the final one. And the dark age would happen.
So you combine all these statements you and I have made, and it should be a no-brainer that we launch with way better single-player content. Should be. And so we will see. Not ending on a dark note, just ending on a we'll see, because it's Capcom, and how close to the finish line are we going to get, and then either get just barely pushed over and our nose is slightly over it or something over the finish line. Are we going to run through that sucker and have confetti and explosions and a couple fireballs? All what's going to happen? That's what we would need to see. So this is all about having Capcom avoid this kind of stuff, like the problems that we've already been through. Hey, we're going to highlight these again because we just went through them. I know it sucks to bring up old stuff, but hey, we just went through this stuff. You got to prove to us you're not going to do it again. Here's how to avoid it. Just listen to EventHubs and everything is going to be good.